Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the Observer's Notebook podcast, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I'm Tim Robertson, the host of the Observer's Notebook and also the coordinator of the training program within the ALPO. Thank you for downloading and listening. The ALPO collects and analyzes observations of various solar system bodies and associated phenomena and publishes detailed reports concerning these bodies in its quarterly publication, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, otherwise known as the Strolling Astronomer. This podcast depends upon donations from you, our listeners, to keep it alive. If you enjoy what you hear on the podcast, you can donate to it via Patreon. You can give as little as $1 a month. If you feel even more generous, for $5, you receive early access to the podcast before it goes public. For $10, you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35 a month, you receive 1 year's membership to the ALPO and producer credits. You can help us out by going to www.patreon, that's patreon.com/Observer's Notebook. If you'd like to join the ALPO, membership begins at only $18 a year. Find out more at www.alpo-astronomy.org. And you can also find the ALPO on Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy, and also the Observer's Notebook also has a Facebook page as well. Just search for Observer's Notebook. If you enjoy what you hear on the podcast, please subscribe. That way you'll never miss another episode of the podcast. This episode is a very special one. Direct from Kosovo, we have Pranvera Hajsim. She is the director of the astronomy outreach of Kosovo, and they're currently got approval from the government to build a planetarium and an observatory in Kosovo, the very first planetarium and observatory in the country. She's an amazing young woman. We had a little audio problems because we do it through Skype, and we dropped out a couple times, but it really didn't affect the quality of the overall podcast. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of the podcast. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Observer's Notebook podcast. Today we have a very special guest all the way from Kosovo, Pranvera Hajsim. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to be here.
Now, I've been following you on Facebook for a little while, and the reason I followed you is because I realized, well, I guess when you were in the U.S. this past year, every time I saw you, you were on a friend of mine's Facebook page. So I figured everybody I knew, you knew. So, hey, and then I saw what you were doing in Kosovo, and very impressive. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. But that's why I wanted to touch base with you and get you on the podcast today.
Well, it's great to be here. And I just checked your website earlier, and I saw that you have interviewed some of my friends, and it was really interesting to have all these common friends. So I guess this is really nice to be here, and I hope that we can reveal so much about Kosovo's outreach and our program over here.
I hope so. Now, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about yourself, those of you listeners that don't know you?
I am 23 years old, from Republic of Kosovo, which is a very young country in southern east of Europe. I am a student doing my bachelor degree in geography at University of Pristina, and I'm also the head for the Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo, which is a non-profit organization which missions is to popularize the science of astronomy and to do public educating to our community, because in my country we do not have observatories or astronomy departments or any institutions that does exploring or things for astronomy. So I think it was very necessary to found a program like this, which has done pretty much a huge impact in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I see that. Is there someone that influenced you in astronomy that got you motivated for this?
Well, it's pretty difficult to say that someone has influenced me, since in my country here we do not have astronomers. And it's funny because when I travel to other countries throughout the world, I see people telling me that, oh yeah, I've got inspired because I have been in a star party, or my dad bought me a telescope when I was this years old and stuff like that. But with me, it's different because I had none of these to actually inspire me. But what happened was when I was 3 years old in 1999, my country was actually involved in a conflict with Serbia. It was a very bad war at that time, but even though down here it was a mess, up in the sky it was happening a spectacular phenomenon which we know as a solar eclipse. And as a young kid, having to view a solar eclipse for the first time, even though we didn't have telescopes and solar glasses like I do now, back then we tried to observe the solar eclipse through a bucket filled with water in the reflection. And it was really nice. It somehow captured my attention, and that was the sparkle that made me love celestial objects. And since then, I have not let this dream fade away. I have been trying to learn astronomy in books and using internet. And this was also one of the reasons why I learned English, because we have very limited books that are about astronomy. And even though I don't speak very, very well English, my accent is not so good, but I try my best. And it has been wonderful because this also allowed me to speak with astronomers around the world and get to know more about the science, have different experiences by traveling and getting to visit large observatories, which I will mention some later. But this was the way how I started into astronomy, and it has not been easy after all, because being somehow single-handed, it's not that I founded this organization, and now I have about 200 other people after me who we all work together, and we're just making a change.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have a telescope currently?
I owe about 8 telescopes.
Oh my goodness.
Equipment, but they are not very big. The largest one I have is an 8-inch Newtonian. These telescopes as a donation from international astronomers, including the ones from Germany, from Austria, from USA, and a lot more of these equipments. I would say 50% of them came as a donation from Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project with director Stephen Ramsden, who's located in Georgia. Mm-hmm. He has been supporting our program very much, and I am very thankful to him, because if I didn't have to do any outreach or any kind of great activity, because it's the telescope that actually gets the attention to people and the students and kids and everyone. And it's amazing when I just get these telescopes out there and show the sun or stars or any object, planets, to the people, and you will always see that wow expression in everyone's face. But it also helped me very much gain experience in observing. I remember when I got my first telescope in 2011, it was a 3-inch Newtonian, very small, but to me it was like having the Hubble Space Telescope, because yeah, it meant very much to me. But it has been helping me because I learned how to observe, how to find objects in galaxies. Right now I have got very much interested in asteroids, and I am also being interested in accessing observatories with remote control online, where I can observe more faint asteroids and practice occultations or asteroids photometry, and learn more how to get data from these and analyze it and somehow just show it to people what an amateur astronomer can do.
Yeah, and speaking of asteroids, I believe 45687 means something to you.
Sorry?
I believe a number 45687 might mean something to you.
Oh yeah, that's my lovely asteroid.
Yeah.
Well, I would say lucky that the Minor Planet Center has named an asteroid after me. I was nominated to them by astronomer Richard Hill, who works for the Catalina Sky Survey, and this asteroid was actually discovered from them. And it's amazing, since I have I'm passionate about asteroids, knowing that I have one right now that holds my name and it's flying in space is just wonderful, and it's going to be there forever unless it doesn't impact somewhere. But this also means a lot for our nation, Albanian nation, because it's the first celestial body that holds an Albanian name.
Oh, that's fantastic.
My name in English means spring. So it's like primavera in Italian. So it's very nice. It's very nice. And everyone was so excited. And I have received congratulations also from the government and other people that were really proud of that.
That's fantastic. Now, talk to me a little bit about the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project.
I mentioned that this program is located in Georgia, in Atlanta, but this program has 23 different chapters around the world, including the one in Kosovo, which is my organization, Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo. Stephen Ramsden has done a wonderful job. He is an astronomer, and he's focused in studying the sun, and through spectroscopy and through solar telescopes. So basically, he has helped these chapters around the world who are located in so many places, and some which are not very much developed, like Kosovo or Pakistan or Tunisia and other places in Southern America and everywhere like that. He found these astronomy groups which he helped by donating equipment. Like he has sent to us many telescopes, which some of them are solar telescopes and belongs to different wavelengths. So thanking him and his program, right now my team and I and everyone in Kosovo can view the sun in 3 different wavelengths, and also visible light. He has also been sending thousands and thousands of solar glasses, which we share for free to the people. And it's amazing to have solar telescopes, because the benefit is when we do outreach in schools, which school session is mainly during the day, it's very easy to go out there during the day and set up solar telescopes, then waiting the whole night to view some planets or something like that. And he has also been in Kosovo. Mr. Ramsden spent 10 days over here in 2016, and it was very nice because for the first time an international astronomer decided to come to our country and teach our students into spectroscopy and solar astronomy. We have done a few activities in some of the cities here, and I also met him a couple of times when I was in America on my trips. Him very much for doing all this, not only for our country, but for so many other people, and change their life forever.
That's fantastic. Yeah, solar astronomy is a great avenue for doing outreach because, like you said, it's during the day and relatively simple instruments you can do just basic solar observing with, and you don't have to wait for dark skies and things like that.
Definitely.
That's great. What you mentioned earlier that growing up there weren't astronomers in Kosovo. What is amateur astronomy like right now in Kosovo?
Right now, it's getting better because I founded AOK about 4 years ago, and I was all alone back then. But by doing so many activities, by creating a large network with international astronomers, this very much helped my program and our country because we were getting so many other students interested in the same subject. And right now, I mentioned earlier that my organization has over 200 students and professors that works together. We have astronomy subject which students learn in schools, which is in the 12th grade in the high schools, I guess. And it's not very much. It's mainly basics, and they just learn about planets and such, but they never get to observe. So it's a whole different story if you observe the sun and if you learn or read about it in the book, which you can see things with a telescope. You can understand everything better, not just about the sun, but I'm talking about every other object. And all these activities we have been doing in Kosovo in the last 4 years. We have been trying to set up our equipment in every city, in every village, including urban places and also rural places with like smaller schools. But our mission was to give the opportunity and access for everyone to observe, to learn. We have done many presentations. We have been trying to bring over international astronomers and aerospace engineers to teach us about different kind of topics, which includes astrophysics and spectroscopy, astronomy, optics, aerospace engineering, rockets, and everything possible that covers about space exploration. And it has been different because right now we have also got the government involved in all this. And it's so amazing because when government decides to do something in this field, it's a bigger help for us as well, because we have developed programs together in cooperation with the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. In 2017, we have been doing this program where we went in every high school to teach them about astronomy. Of course, I'm not an expert and neither are my friends, but we have at least an experience in this, and we have been somehow self-taught, and we have been having trips out of the country. We learned how to observe. We learned things about astronomy, and all that knowledge we're trying to share with other people. And finally, I think our country in this last decade is going toward another field that has been undeveloped before here. It has been unknown for our people. And we're very proud of that. And I believe that in the future, it's going to be even better than this.
Yeah. Astronomy is a hobby that a lot of people do alone. You know, they'll take their telescope out at night and they'll do their observations. They'll take their photographs and things like that. What prompted you to get this deep into outreach?
Well, it's amazing. Of course, when you get out there by yourself, you set the telescope, and I do that very often. I just go outside in my backyard and I set up my telescopes. I get the cameras. I try to test into astrophotography, but my story is a little different because I am in this place where I didn't have other people into astronomy. And whenever someone sees me with a telescope or when they observe through my telescope, they always get so much impressed. So by seeing how much impressed they get, how much they want to do the same, and how much interested they are in astronomy, this was one of the facts that made me just go out there and somehow discover other people with the same passion. And it has been perhaps one of the greatest steps that I ever took to found this organization, because through that, now we have students that wants to become planetary scientists, wants to become astronomers. And imagine what that could mean for our country, to have the first astronomers ever. And I believe that in the near future, we will be having a special department at University of Pristina, which will be dedicated for astronomy and astrophysics. So our students don't have to leave the country and go somewhere else to get educated, but they can stay here, they can study, they can specialize in a special field in astronomy. And this can happen by working hard, by not giving up, and that's what we are actually doing.
You are a good example of working hard in this field, I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Now, you started the organization Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo. Was that your brainchild, and how did you go about organizing it?
I started doing activities like 8 years ago. By now, I started doing activities by myself, but I spent like 3 or 4 years doing
You were 15 at the time, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Most 15-year-olds aren't doing this.
Yeah, it was funny because look, having this small telescope and being young, so you're going in this new school, asking them their staff to do an activity in their school, they will just look at you like, what is she trying to do here? She's so young, you know? Mm-hmm. It wasn't easy to start and organize everything, but someday I just got this idea to do an organization, and it was different because we are a nonprofit organization, an NGO, and which is now somehow officially you can get programs to develop, and you can get funds also from government, and it's different when it gets official. And I remember the first activity I have been doing with the AOK, which was 2 months later after I founded it. I noticed that there was a solar eclipse happening, which was in March 2015. So I said, okay, back then in the late 90s, I observed the eclipse through a bucket filled with water. But right now I had like solar telescopes and thousands of solar glasses, which I share for free to people. And I said, okay, I will take my telescopes and go in the capital city in Pristina, in the main square, where I can find all the people moving around. And I will just invite people to look at the solar eclipse. So I went there. I remember my family came with me to help me set up everything, and because I had a display with books and photographs and everything. But guess what? In less than an hour, 8,000 people showed up.
Oh, my goodness.
It was really difficult to manage all that because I didn't have people to actually help me except my parents, my sister, my brother. But it was amazing to see all these people come and observe, and I think it was one of the largest activity that I ever done since I founded this organization. Later on, we have done more activities because in that activity I've got to know more people. We did another big one I remember, which was Mercury transit on May of. And that was also huge like that. We were in Pristina in the square, and a lot of people showed up. And it's always amazing to see these huge crowds of people coming to observe and wanting to get knowledge in astronomy. It's just an inspiration to us.
That's fascinating and amazing. That's wow. Now you've talked about traveling internationally as well. I mean, like I said, you came into my focus when you came to the U.S. Talk to me about your trips here.
Yeah, I was very lucky because usually we say about social media they're bad, but if you ask me, I wouldn't say that. I would say social media are amazing if you use them in the right way. So I used Facebook to literally contact people, astronomers, and from all around the world. And this helped me because in 2016, I have got invitations from these astronomers that I knew online to travel to Europe countries, to Australia, and also to America, which was my dream to come to America. And through all my travels, it has been a change. It has been happening in the last 3 years, but what I have been learning and experiencing in the last 3 years, I haven't experienced in my whole life. It was amazing in the first point that I was meeting astronomers, real astronomers that did their study and put their whole life and work into the field of astronomy, and regular observers and also discoverers of comets and asteroids, also visiting large observatories and everything like that. I just still can't remember. I mean, I can't forget the feeling I had when I walked for the first time in an observatory and planetarium, which was in 2016 in Australia. But coming to America, it was all different because I was invited to actually speak in some of the largest star parties and astronomy gatherings. The first person that invited me to come to America was Mr. Robert Reeves from Texas. He asked me to be their keynote speaker at Texas Star Party, which is every year in Fort Davis of Texas. So I accepted the invitation and I flew in America in 2017 for the first time. So instead of being only for 1 week in Texas as I was invited, I ended up being in America for 4 months and traveling in 17 different states. And this happened all because these people on Facebook, all these astronomers, were aware that I'm in America. So all of them wanted to invite me to their place or to their observatory or to speak in another place. And it was overwhelming for me. So after Texas Star Party, I also I went to Space Fest, to where else? I can't even remember. I visited so many places and observatories. I also visited McDonald Observatory. I met many NASA astronauts and moonwalkers. I visited the Meteor Crater in Arizona and a lot more. I also was in some of the NASA centers in Huntsville, in Florida, in Houston, and also went in the East Coast. I was invited to speak at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, which it was an honor for me to represent Kosovo in that university, knowing that it's one of the best. And like this, it has been a whole new experience. I was very glad, and it was my privilege to somehow represent my country because my mission was to come out there and speak in name of my country, to tell people that what our country is doing for astronomy, and even though we are a very young organization, very small, and mainly very young people as members, like my age, we are at least not giving up. We are trying to change the whole country with some telescopes, and we were hoping for a better future. And every of them has shown support for our organization, and I'm very thankful to all of them that took care of me and literally changed my life.
Oh. You are an inspiration, young lady. You really are. I mean, what you've done so far. I mean, you're 23, for God's sakes. It's like I'm blown away by you. I really am. What have you learned in doing this process? What are some of your lessons learned?
Well, some of the lessons that I have learned is, as a young person, it was a challenge to travel alone. And second of all, being a female, it's never easy. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned from all of this is that you never really realize what a great impact you can do on others with a very small thing. If I was going back in time and if someone told me that someday your country will be having the first astronomy center because of you, I would never believe it. But today, it's somehow, when I think about it, it's amazing because I learned, first of all, to be independent. I learned that things can happen if we don't give up, if we really put work in that and show our efforts. It's never going to be a waste. It's always going to make a change. And sometimes you don't realize it, but the success is somehow guaranteed when you just keep working. And it has not been easy also from people that, people will always try to somehow bother you on the way you go somewhere. Like they will say like, okay, astronomy, it's not important. Why do we care about objects in the sky? But to me, it is important because after all, we are all humans living in this planet, which is a third away from the sun, and why we are here and what are we doing here and how we ended up here, or if something is threatening us from out there, like an asteroid or something, then we should be interested in if